Hey guys, welcome back. Today we will continue with the FTD configuration. In the last video, we basically connected my FTD with my FMC, right? So this is my topology, this is my FTD, and this is my FMC. We connected my FTD with my FMC, which means there is connectivity. You can check that over here as well. If I do a sudo to ping 192.168.100.52, should work, right? That's good. So there was connectivity, and then we kind of set it up. We will go ahead and do a little more configurations in this video. We will start with configuring the interfaces, right? So where do you do that? You go to interface, go to devices, right? Here you click on the pencil of that particular device, you go to interfaces tab, and here you go, you have your interfaces, right? So now let's start configuring. If you look at my topology here, I'm going to use the interfaces gigabit, the 0/0 is for management, and there is a small issue with the GNS3 where if you look here, I have used the interfaces 2, 3 and 4, right? But these three interfaces are actually mapped to 1, 2 and 3 on my actual FMC, right? So don't be confused. This is just an issue with the GNS3. If it's a real device, or if it's a real if it's not a simulating environment, then you need not bother about that. It's because of the GNS3. I'm just bumping up one interface, right? So I will show you how I do that. So we'll go here, we go to the interfaces. I'm not going to use the 0, 1, I'm going to use the 0/1, right? So let's go here, and I will configure this to be my outside interface, right? I want my 0/1, which is nothing but 0/2 here, to be my outside interface. So how do I do that? I can go to outside, right? And I have to I've enabled this security zone, right? So there is already a security zone which I've created here. So I can select that. If I have not created, then I can create a new one as well, right? I can create something new, but I've already created something called outside earlier, so I'm going to use the same thing. And what else? Rest remains same. I need to put an IP address, which is 192.160 no 1.20.10, right? /24, and we are good with this. Let's go and do the next one, which is going to be inside interface. So 0/2, which is 0/3 here, will be my inside one. So let's start with the inside. Let's go here, and security zone is going to be inside. IP address is going to be 10.11.11.10/24. Okay, I hope I've enabled it. Okay, I'm going to enable it. Enable is basically like no shut of a particular interface, right? Now the last one is my DMZ zone, right? If you look here, I have my inside, I have my outside, and R3 is my DMZ. So I'm going to do the DMZ as well. It's going to be DMZ, and let's put the DMZ zone here. IP address is going to be 192.1 dot, what do I use? Let me check. 168.1.10/24. Looks good. Let's do this. So we have all the three here. Did I enable it? Probably I did not. Let me do that. I did not enable it, right? So these are my three interfaces. Now let me save this, and let me also go and deploy this once I save this. It's taking a bit of time, right? That's good. Now I'm going to deploy this. So I'm going to select this and deploy. Okay, so which is good. So the deployment has started. Right, pretty good. The deployment has started. Let's wait for the deployment to finish, and then we'll be able to test it, right? So we have just put the IP addresses on the interfaces of my FTD, right? We'll be able to ping the interfaces from the routers. From R1 we'll be able to ping the inside interface, which is 0/3. From R2 we'll be able to ping the outside one, this the one of these interfaces, and from DMZ as well we'll be able to ping 0/4, right? Let's wait. Takes a bit of time, but yeah. Okay, while this is being done, I think we can also this is still happening. So while this is done, we will go to the next step. Once this is done, I'll be able to show you the deployment, how it worked. The next is, let's look at policies, right? So if you look at the diagram here, what if I want to send all the traffic from R1 to R2, right? From inside to outside. If I want to allow all the traffic from inside zone to outside zone, how would I do it, right? So we'll have to do that using policies. So you go to policies here. I already have a policy which was put in place when I created this FMC, when I imported this FTD, right? And I registered this FTD, in fact. So yeah, let's open this. Okay, so for now the default policy is that it is blocking all the traffic, right? Default action is blocking all the traffic. Whatever is passing through the FTD is getting blocked, right? Irrespective of what zone to what it is flowing in. But what we want to do is we're going to allow it. So how do we do that? Let's create a rule. Let's go to add rules. I'm going to create this rule. I'm going to call this as R1. Okay, or let's say we want traffic from in to out, right? So let's say in to out. In to out, all the traffic has to be allowed. So allow, it's enabled here. The zone is going to be add to source. This is the inside one, and this is the outside one. Okay, what do we do next? Networks. You want to allow from inside network, right? So here you can create objects. I have already created an object here for my 10.11.11.0 network, which is my inside network. But if this is not here, you can create it this way. You just need to press add object, and you can create, give a name, you can create a network, or you can create a host, and you save it, and then it will start appearing over here, right? Since I already have it, I'm going to use this. I'm going to use this as my inside network, and for the outside I'm going to use any. So I'm going to retain this, right? And I want all traffic to go, right? It's not just certain applications. So this is an amazing advantage of using my FTD over ASA, right? So we are able to, you can actually block applications as well, right? In ASA we just had access list which was used, right? But here you can block applications. Like I can literally select Facebook, right? If I don't want people to use Facebook, I can select Facebook, and you can see here there are a lot of options here which I select, and I can actually restrict use of that as well, right? For now I'm gonna not touch that. Let's go to ports. So this is another interesting place where you can play around with ports. We'll look into this the next thing. So for now, for this particular rule, I'm gonna just do this. I'm gonna say that all the traffic from inside to outside should go, right? And let's add this. So I added one rule, right? What do we do next? Let's add one more rule where we will allow all the telnet and the ping to happen from R2 to R3, right? So we allowed everything from R1 to R2, and telnet and ping from R2 to R3, right? So how do we do that? So let's call this as another rule, which is R2 to R3, right? And the first one is the source is going to be outside, and this is going to be the destination, right? And what do we do here? The networks is from anywhere outside the net, any IP4, right? So it's going to be any over here, but to my destination network, which is 192.168 um, 1.0, right? This is also a network which I had already created, so I'm going to keep it here. This is a DMZ zone, right? And what else? So now I'm going to use this ports, right? So we talked about telnet. I want to allow telnet, right? So I'm going to select telnet here, right? Add to destination, right? So I'm going to allow the telnet one, and I also need to allow ping, right? So ping is probably, maybe it was not a port earlier, so I had to create, right? So I had to create it. So here also you can create a port the same way, right? So I created a port and I call that as ping. I'm going to add that to destination as well. And once this is done, let's add it. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so you can use this option here to check if there are any conflicts. Currently there are no conflicts, so that looks good. I can save this. Okay, meanwhile, let's see if the deployment has been done. Yeah, the deployment has worked, so I can go and check now from R1. Let's put some IP addresses on my R1, right? So let's do that. So where is my okay, so this is going to be my R1 here. Let's define it here. Okay, so you see the R1 configuration is pretty simple. I have just defined an interface, put in IP address of 10.11.1.1 11.1, and I've also enabled telnet on it and put a default route towards my FTD, right? And I'm going to do the same thing for R2 and R3 as well. Okay, this is going to be my R2 and this is going to be my R3. Okay, so how do we do this? We'll take R1's configuration and put it on R1. Meanwhile, take the R2 as well. Sorry, probably did not get copied. Let's do this. So that's done, and let's also pick the R3 configuration. Pretty much very simple. I'm just putting the IP addresses for now. Okay. I think something did not get copied. This one. Alright, so R1, R2, R3, pretty good. Now let's see if I can ping, right? We did the configuration, IP addresses configuration on my FTDs. So ideally this should be able to ping. So let's ping the FTD 192, sorry, 10.11.11.10, right? That works. Similarly, if I go to my R2, I should be able to ping the default gateway, which is my FTD. Right, works. So similarly the R3 works as well. Now we have done the interface configuration, right? Let's we have also done the access policy configurations here. Let's go and deploy our access policy configuration and test if this is working. Right now if I ping from R1 to R2, or let's do a telnet from R1 to R2, do you think it would work? It is not working, right? But we will have to see now what happens after I deploy this. So let's take this and deploy. Okay, the deployment has started as usual. So we covered the FTD FMC integration. We also did the basic configurations like NTP and the interface configurations on my FTD through FMC obviously. And once we did that, we moved ahead and we looked into access policies, how you can write access policies for data to move from one zone to other zone, right? And that is an example here where we are deploying it right now. Once we deploy this, we will be able to test it as well, right? So once that is done, the next piece which I would like to cover is the routing part, which is going to be very interesting again. Right, so let's wait for a minute for this to happen. Okay, it's taking a bit of time, but yeah, hold on to your patience. Okay, looks like the deployment has been done, right? So you can look here, all the tasks are done. So now we can go and test it. Let's see if this telnet works now. There you go. Isn't it working? And why it worked? It's because of the policy which we just now put in. So all the traffic is allowed from, you know, R1 to R2. Even I can ping as well, 192.1.20.2, right? That works. Whereas R2 to R1, if I want to do, it will not work, right? Because we did not put a policy. We can test it as well. So if I want to ping 10.1. Sorry, 11.11.1, see, it won't work because the policy doesn't exist, right? Now, what if I want to do that telnet from R2 to R3? We put a policy for doing a telnet from R2 to R3 as well, right? So how do you do that? So 192, 168, if I'm not wrong, .1.3, right? There you go, that works. Beautiful. So we have done the access policies part of FTD FMC. You can play around more as well. The last part which I want to cover in this video is the routing, right? So for the routing part, how do you go about it? We again go back to my devices, right? I go and click the pencil mark here, and yeah, so you see here routing. Okay, taking a bit of time again. Yeah, so you have a lot of types of route, right? You have static routes. You have right? So you have static routes, you have RIP, OSPF, BGP, and so on, right? Let's just pick a couple of them. If you want static route, I can show you a static route, or maybe let me think. Do you want a static route? Okay. Yeah, we could do a static route as well. Probably on my R3, I could do a static route. I'll show you how to do a static route. Maybe one of them. So let's start with. So what do we do? Static route. Let's configure a static route on for my R3, which means let me go to my R3 and put in I would say a loopback interface, right? A loopback interface for an address. Let's go and put this. Let's use this. Let's gonna put here, right? So I'm gonna put in a loopback address of 192.168.11.11, right? And I'm gonna put a static route, or I could do it on my R1 as well. That's because I'm gonna do OSPF later. So I'm gonna do a static route between my FTD and my R1 itself, right? And what IP do I use for the static route? Probably 0, yeah. Let's pick this up. Let's go to R1. let's put a address. Let's put a address like 10.20.20.1, right? So this is going to be my loopback address, and I'm gonna put this on my router for now. Configuration router. There you go. So on the router it's done. Now I have to do it on the FTD. IPv4. On which side is it? Inside, right? Because it's a static route towards inside. Okay, and you can see that the host is probably not here, so I'll create the network. Sorry, I have to create the network. So what the new network which I created, which is net what is the network 10.20.20.0, right? That's a network which I created. So I'm going to create that here. Sorry, .0. So I'm going to create a network, put in here, or I can actually create a host as well, right? Yeah, that should work. So I just want the static route to R1, right? So let's basically call this as R1. Loopback 1, right? R1 loopback 1, and the host is 10.20.20.1, and that you go. There you go. So we are going to save this, saving the object which I created, and I will go and select it over here. So I can select it here. I'm going to add it. So that is done. Now I need to put a default gateway, which is going to be my R1, which is 10.11.11.1, right? And that's good. So there you go. I'm going to save this, and this is going to be my static route towards 10.20 network, right? So that is how you do static routes. Moving on, let's also do OSPF, right? Let's do OSPF and probably BGP, right? So I'm going to do OSPF on my R1. First, let me do it on my router, right? So if I go to my router, I'm gonna create two more loopback addresses, right? Loopback 0, loopback 2 probably. So I have already one loopback 1. So I'm going to create loopback 2. These are the two networks, 192.168.2.1, 10.1.1.1. And let me also put the OSPF configuration on my router side, right? So I'm going to advertise 10.1 network, 192.168.2.0 network, and the 10.11 as well, right? Which are the three networks on this. Now let me just pick this up quickly and put it on the router. That's R1. Good. Now the interesting thing is we need to do the configuration on my FTD. So how do I do this? Let me select the process. For now I'm going to use it as my internal. I will change it to a different role later, right? Network ID, probably the IP address with which I want to form the neighborship, which is R1, and let's keep the rest over there. In the area place, I go and click on add. I'm going to create this. The OSPF process is going to be 1, right? I'm going to use OSPF 1, but the area is basically 0, so I'm going to create the 0 area. It's going to be normal area type, and the network which I want to advertise from here is my 10.11 network, right? 10.11.11.0. So I'm going to add that, and the rest is same. So I'm going to save this, right? So that is all about OSPF. So that's how you do OSPF, right? Let's also do BGP between the FTD and R2, right? So let me go to BGP, and I'm going to enable BGP, create a AS number of 65,001, right? Like I said, we need to do the BGP configuration on R2 before that, so let's do that. Put in a loopback address and also put the BGP configuration, right? The loopback address is 2.2.2 and the BGP configuration is 192.120.10, right? Remote AX 65,001. Yeah, that looks good, right? So this is the basically BGP configuration advertising the 2.2.0.0 network, right? Okay, I think I did not put it on the router, so let me put this on the router as well. That's my R2. There you go. So that's done. So I'm going to continue my routing here configuration. So once this is done, I can go to IPv4 right here. Right, so I'm going to go to neighbor. I'm going to go to neighbor and I'm going to do a add. What's going to be my neighbor? It's 192.1.20.2, which is my R2. Remote AS is 65001. Enable the addresses, right? And that is it, right? I'm gonna press OK here. So I've done Ospf BGP, right? Pretty good. Yeah, so let's save this. And go ahead and deploy it. So I've done Ospf BGP and the static routes. So my routers should be, will start seeing neighborships on their devices as well. Let's wait for a minute. It's deploying. This is my R1. Let me clear R1 a bit. So if I do show IP route, oh, it's already come. Has it? Yeah, it's still happening, but I can see. Okay, so maybe I should do show IP OSPF neighbors. Okay, it's not yet come because the deployment is still happening. Yeah, you can see something happening here. So probably the deployment completed. Yeah, it is done now. Now if I go and see show IP OSPF neighbor, you can see that I have formed on my router R1 has formed a neighborship with my FTD 10.11.11.10, right? Similar is the case with the R2. It should be show IP OSPF. Let's do BGP. See if there are BGP routes. Yeah, I'm checking show route BGP. Okay, still not yet come. Let's check show BGP. Yeah, you can see the 2.0 network here, right? So that's basically the loopback address which I advertised on my BGP as well. We can actually go to FTD and check it as well. So this is how you can do it. So I can do show route here. Yeah, and you can see that FTD has formed neighborship and it has learned the 2.0 network from my R2, right? And it has learned the 10.1.1 network from my R1 through OSPF right over here. And it has also learned another OSPF route through 192.168.2.1, right? And what else did we do? We also did some static routing. The static routing, if I'm not wrong, was on R1 and it was 10.20.20.1 and that is also that here. So you can see the S, it basically means that it's a static route, right? Now the other thing which I also want to show you is the redistribution. How do you redistribute one protocol into the other, right? So probably we can do that inside BGP. So if I go to BGP, I can go to IPv4, I go to redistribution, I can click on add and select OSPF because OSPF is something which I want to redistribute into BGP. The process ID is important. The process ID was 1, so I'm going to put that 1, and yeah, internal, and yeah, I think this should work, right? So that's redistributing my OSPF. So let's do that on the OSPF side as well. Let's try to redistribute my BGP inside OSPF. Okay, so when I have to redistribute, that's why I need to change my router. I have to change the role to ASPR, and now I'll be able to redistribute into OSPF 1. I'm going to redistribute BGP subnets, and yeah, AS number is important, 65001. Sure you have configured? Yes, right? So these are the couple of things which I did for redistributing, and there you go. So it's getting saved. Now let's go and deploy it. You have to wait for a couple of minutes for this deployment to happen, right? So once that is done, we'll be able to check it. Still happening, few more seconds. Yeah, so the deployment is completed. Now we can check. So if you see the difference between the show IP route command earlier and now, right? This is on R2, and R2 has actually learned the routes for R1 as well, right? The 10.1 networks which are from R1. You can see here, those routes are there, and that basically proves that the redistribution actually worked, right? Right. So yeah, so that's something which I actually wanted to show you here in this particular video. So we talked about the whole FMC FTD integration. We talked about the interface configurations and the basic configurations. Then we did a bit of access policies. We configured access policies, and we looked into how we can move across the zones of different of the on both the inside and outside and the DMZ and all of that. And at the last, we also configured routing protocols, right? We looked into static routing, OSPF, BGP, and to wind it, we also concluded by redistributing the routes into either of the protocols. So yeah, thank you for watching. Bye.